Stand where I want to with my free speech, and I break through the lies and I stand on my feet.
Is there hope for the future? Is there hope for the future? That's what I'm saying. In the scientific community.
Yeah. I mean, just by the fact that Imperial College Student Union do invite me to speak at dinners and so forth, even though they know my views are diametrically opposed to those of the powers that be.
Excellent.
So, you know, it is good, but it is a hard nut to crack. And I think it's quite interesting how student funding today prevents them, makes it more difficult for them to think, because they have to, you know, earn their own keep, basically, while at university, or borrow money and get out of a huge debt.
Yeah.
Now, when I was a student, we lived in relative luxury. We had grants to keep us alive, feed us, clothe us, and all our university fees were paid, you know, and we were more free to think, you know, and that was the, I don't know, the pinnacle of, you know, free academia, if you like, in the 60s, but that has ended.
Well, getting back to the corruption in the science community, which I'm sure you're aware of, we know about the ClimateGate scandal. Yeah. It wasn't made a big deal of on the news, of course, in the mainstream mind control, mass manipulation media, but thousands and thousands of emails were hacked by, we believe, perhaps Russia. I mean, Alex Jones was popping champagne on the show. He never does that. He hasn't done that in 15 years. I had to watch that again today, I must say. You gotta love that guy, you know.
Oh, he's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I listen to him every day, and he was loving the ClimateGate. Can you give us some idea what that was all about? I mean, they faked the buoy data on the Arctic, Pacific, and the Atlantic temperatures, didn't they? And then the university had to admit that it was. They got caught red-handed, didn't they?
Well, basically, there were two things going on. The actual hiding of a decline was that they'd made a model to make use of data to get rid of the medieval warm period. And then they found that if they used that applying to later, it just made temperatures dive to insanely low amounts. So they had to hide that decline by sort of fudging the join with current data. So that was that decline they did. Then, of course, they wanted to increase temperatures and hide the more recent decline, real decline in temperatures, and they did that. This wasn't the Climate Research in the East Anglia who did the first one. The second one was kind of more like a world thing involving American operations too. They just selected data from countries. So when Russia sent them some data, they decided to ignore 75% of their stations and just choose the ones which showed some sort of warming. Or in New Zealand, they fiddled around with the data to change a warming of 0.3 degrees per century or something into one of 0.7, which is just, well, it was fraud. Fraud is the right word. And now we find that with what's called satellite gate, a number of the American satellites were recording insane temperatures, such as, which would mean that Lake Michigan should have been boiling continuously for the last year. Those averages were put in, or those temperatures are put into the data to construct climate averages. Well, I mean, this is insane, you know. I mean, if I were to put in temperatures of minus 50 and say, oh, this is the answer, stick this into the average, and, you know, there would be front page news and people screaming from the rooftops on the media that people have been fraudulating data to make the world colder. But if it's fraud to make it hotter, we somehow don't hear anything of it. And, you know, what it means is that we actually have no reliable data set which tells us what world temperatures are really doing now. We don't even know with any reliability whether the warming peak that seems to have passed now was warmer or cooler than the peak which past data and records of, you know, actual snow or whatever or summers show was in the 1930s and 40s, you see. Was that peak of world warmth bigger or lower than the recent peak? We don't know.
Well, you spoke of, I noticed you mentioned Russia there, and there's an article that's come out today from Free Europe Liberty. It's a pretty good website. Russian scholar warns of secret US climate change weapon. As Muscovites suffer record high temperatures this summer, a Russian political scientist has claimed the United States may be using climate change weapons to alter the temperatures and crop yields of Russia and other Central Asian countries. In a recent article, Andrei Arashev, Director Deputy of the Strategic Culture Foundation, wrote, "At the moment, climate weapons may be reaching their target capacity and may be used to provoke droughts, erase crops, and induce anomalous phenomena in certain countries." You don't mind me holding you to this and picking you up on it, but you don't seem to it doesn't seem to warrant enough interest in you to look any further into it. I mean,
oh no, we should look further into that, but it's a question of time. You see, well, it could be that is going on. You see, now they can see like we can see. Well, we predicted there would be a blocking system, and it would be hot in East Europe and Russia. Now, they could see that, or certainly they could see it happening anyway, even if they couldn't predict it. Now, if that is happening, and they have the facility to make something worse, then that would be the time to make it worse. So, I mean, it's not really stupid that they could be doing something. However, I don't think they would be able to prevent the natural events, which you can see they did happen on the sun, which have swept that superheat away. But if it could be that technology has been or could be developed to make real events turn out worse.
There is one question about the sun, actually, from Walking Turtle. She's an American Indian in Kansas, and a herbalist.
Oh, right.
And she does the Saturday night show, actually. She says, I have heard on the one hand that the sun is becoming more active, and on the other hand, the sun is becoming less active. Which is it, please?
Right. Well, it goes in 11-year cycles of activity, or 22-year cycles of magnetic activity, because the sunspots are differently magnetised each cycle. So right now we are actually in an increasingly active period, although we've just gone out of a long minimum. So in the long term, people are saying, well, some astrophysicists are saying, well, the general average of the cycles is probably declining, and they base that on the fact we just had a very long minimum of activity. But in the shorter term, like the next 5 years, there will be an increase in activity.
So from your research, from your gatherings and findings, you're absolutely positive that it's the sun driving the climate and not some wacky CO2 poisonous gas theory, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense to me.
Impact at all, because you see, whatever impact there could be from CO2, it's entirely negated by feedback processes, such as whatever happens in the atmosphere between us and the top of the atmosphere. That's one thing. The other thing is the plants. When you have when there's more CO2, plants grow faster and they do more transpiration, and the transpiration is a cooling process. So more CO2 is more cooling of the surface, and if there's also a warming effect from anything, either incorrect or correct science from the CO2, they will be completely negated, because if there's not enough plants to negate any CO2 effect, direct effect, then of course the world gets warmer and the plants grow faster. So there is a total feedback system which negates any CO2 change, any changes in climate caused by changes in CO2 levels.
Wake up, people, now rise up and break your chains.